Shall we go? Okay. Good afternoon, esteemed guests. 2023 painted a turbulent picture for the VC landscape. We saw a dramatic shift from funding spurge in 2021, leaving many investors and startups in financial struggles. 2024 is a bit different. We're seeing a bit of cautious optimism. Things are changing. We have a slight improvement, 5% increase in terms of global VC quarter on quarter in Q1 2024, reading into 94 billion across a few deals, I think more than 9,000 deals. The question we're going to try to answer during this session is, how are VCs and venture capital firms preparing for a new era of quality of investors, funding, and what are investors looking for, and what are VC doing to attract liquidity into their fund? Please join me to welcome our dear speakers, His Royal Highness Prince Khaled bin Alwaleed bin Talal Al Saud, the founder and CEO of KBW Ventures. Prince Khaled, if you can come along. Okay, we have, he's getting ready. Hussain Abdulla, partner Golden Gate Ventures. That's fine. It's okay. تفضل. Badr AlMana, Deputy CIO and Head of Direct Investments in Sanabil. Dr. Eric Lee, the Chairman of Chingwei Capital. And last but not least, Megan Reynolds, Head of Capital Formation and Talent at Altimeter Capital. Okay, let's start with you, Prince Khaled. Founders have reported a more difficult time raising capital. So how do you now take decisions? What is your decision strategies into saying, okay, I'm going to commit to this VC rather than this VC?
Okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, rasulullah. Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure being here and an honor, honestly, being at FII again. One of the most important things that we look at, obviously, is the business model and how they're going to adapt to the ever-changing ecosystem of venture capital and technology. Are they catching up to the trends that are happening these days? Obviously, if you stamp AI on anything right now you'll have a lot of attraction. But regardless of that, I think healthcare is really important, manufacturing really important, robotics really important. But all these factors have to play in together so that we can have a really clear understanding on what industry we're looking at. And the founder needs to have a well-rounded understanding of his business, how he's willing to pivot and change if needed from stage 1 to stage 2 until, let's say, 5 to 10 years ahead.
So what did you learn from what happened and what the VC faced in 2023?
Oh, beautiful question. So funding requirements has changed.
Yeah.
For example, right now, the Series A right now is somewhat of a Series C when it comes to check sizes. And unfortunately, that has to do with, well, from my standpoint at least, it has to do with the inflationary rate that's been happening the last 2 to 3 years. Not only that, but more importantly, we're also looking at these founders have to really understand their businesses and how they're going to scale their businesses ahead. Right now, you're seeing a lot of dry powder being put aside, meaning a lot of capital being put aside and waiting for valuations to decrease. These entrepreneurs really have to make sure that they have a good runway for tougher economic times.
It's not a liquidity issue. It's a choice and quality issue today.
It's not a well, no, it's not a liquidity issue. I think it's a liquidity issue now because you had bad management and not properly predicting what's going to happen in the last 12 months or 24 months.
Okay. Hussain, Golden Gate, a Southeast Asian fund that is trying to expand across the world, whether in the Middle East or across continents. How are the dynamics changing?
First of all, allow me to thank FII for the invitation again. And great answer. But I think before I jump to your question, probably I concluded with good founders, good companies will always get access to capital. So Golden Gate was established in Singapore, and we developed a strategy to expand in MENA region. And the reason why we think MENA is an important market, not because of only capital, but we think there are talents here. As you know, more than 50% of populations are young. So VC is one of the sectors or segments that people are paying attention to here. But the way we're trying to differentiate ourselves is we're acting like a gateway for international companies to access the market, and vice versa, companies here to take them international. And thanks to the track record of Golden Gate, which is the first in the strategy, by identifying the company early on, to be in control basically of how the round will be looking like and leading these transactions.
So would you join the rest and say that this year have been cautiously optimistic environment for VC?
Look, I think in this region, yes, I'd look at it as positive outlook. There is capital available. There are talents. Obviously, one of the key challenges has been in the industry, generally speaking, exits, whether it's Asia, whether it's global, or even here, exits were an issue. So the way we look at that as a strategy is the company needs to become international or be international for us to be considering, which helps us the exit story.
Okay. Badr, Sanabil is the VC arm of Public Investment Fund. So how do you do business now? What markets are you looking at? What are you looking at when a proposal is coming to your office? How do you make decisions?
So we're a global. Our mandate is global. So we're focused right now, I think, on U.S., Europe, and then definitely our backyard, which is MENA, and with a great emphasis on Saudi. We invest both in funds and direct. Funds is exclusively global. On direct, we do both MENA and global. I think what we're excited about right now, and we're spending a lot of time on, is kind of the flavor of the year, or maybe the flavor of the decade, I don't know what you call it, but AI. We've spent, I think, over the last 12 to 18 months really just observing, talking to market participants, companies in the sector, technology leaders, to just really understand what's going on. And whatever you learn 2 or 3 months ago changes. It's a very dynamic sector, and I think this is a big focus of us, is really where to invest in this new wave, and we really believe it's a new wave. Is it in the foundation models? Is it in the infrastructure? Is it on the applications? And I think whoever you talk to in this market today will probably have a very different opinion in 6 months. So it's something that we have to always keep up with, have these kind of discussions, understand, but it's a big focus of us.
So what is funded and what is not funded?
What do you mean by that?
What is funded and what would you not decide to go for?
Oh,
and what
okay.
would you say, this is where I'm going to put the money?
Definitely. I think one of the things that we look for is, when it comes to whatever it is, a product or a service that a company is selling, is that it actually provides a direct and clear ROI to the customer. Things that we invest in have to be a need-based product or service rather than nice to have. I think in this kind of environment, it's very important, especially in software, which is a big focus for us. We do a lot of investment in software as a service. See these kind of services that are fundamental for a company to operate. If it's targeting enterprise in that space, if it's targeting SMEs in that space, it's a must-have kind of product, provides a very clear return on investment for these customers. That's a recipe for success, and usually kind of the first indication of product market fit for companies that we invest in.
Dr. Eric, the VC sector in China has tremendously changed and developed, and we do see them everywhere. Can you put us in perspective? Where does this market stand today, and what are you looking for?
Well, we're in flux. So I think 2 things are happening in Chinese venture capital. 2 forces. One is our industry is shifting away from what we've been investing in the last 10, 20 years, which are these very large internet platform companies, enormous companies, being very successful at that. But that's, I think, behind us, that model. So we're shifting away from that towards higher technology content, real economy opportunities where the market needs high-end manufacturing technology, drones, life sciences, semiconductor, what have you. So ironically, actually, these kind of opportunities take much less capital than internet companies, because the internet platforms, the user acquisition costs are huge, and you have to burn so much user acquisition capital.
What's the gap? What's the difference now between the two?
Even for the most expensive endeavor like semiconductor, it's not as expensive as building an internet platform, a consumer internet platform, which you have to burn through $1 billion. Okay, but if you win, you get to be a monopoly. Okay.
It took Amazon more than 20 years.
So we have that. So this shift is very interesting because the capital needed is less, but the know-how needed is much higher, because you really need to know what you need to know the vertical sector and technology and the business very well.
And you're still focused on China, or you're looking at deals everywhere?
Well, that's my second point. So the second force that's happening, that's driving Chinese venture capital, is what I call deglobalization and reglobalization. So the world is getting deglobalized. Technology sectors are getting fragmented. And how do you find opportunities for semiconductor, for instance? It's getting the technology. We're bringing a company to the kingdom right now, a semiconductor company. And this is the kind of opportunity that the kingdom, as a neutral place, may reap benefits when the world is getting fragmented in such an important industry. So that's another opportunity where Chinese VC is going. So we're going global by necessity, not by desire.
Megan, Silicon Valley has led the way for the past 20 years in VC, in raising funds, and everybody has followed suit since. Do you think the situation is changing now? Where does the US stand in terms of liquidity, investors, raising funds? How is the picture there?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. It's fantastic to be here. Thank you to the FII and to our amazing partners in the region. It's always amazing to be in Riyadh. It is an extremely exciting time in Silicon Valley. I think that in one hand, there's a perception that you've had this contraction in the venture capital landscape because we look at what happened in 2021 where capital was flowing so freely. But that was just an anomaly where capital was free and you had just unbelievable amounts of entrance into a system that were funding things that shouldn't be funded. That obviously came to a halt in 2022. At the same time, you've had this revolution in AI that is the most tremendous technology super cycle that we will perhaps ever see in our lifetimes. And there is no shortage of capital for the amazing opportunities that are coming out of that ecosystem today. But it is a system of haves and have-nots. Not everything is getting funded, but if you are a fast-growing, sustainable business that is growing at unbelievable pace because of the AI innovation cycle, you are getting funded, and there is plenty of capital. What's not getting funded is a lot of the business models from 2020 and 2021 that, frankly, were challenged business models to begin with, that, frankly, had no path to profitability, that had capped out, that had raised too much capital at too high valuations. And if there's an ecosystem of LPs that sits behind this that are kind of starved for liquidity.
Do you think things have calmed down? Because the whole talk was about an overvaluation. Things were bigger than what the reality is. How is valuation today when we look across VCs in the United States?
I think that there are probably thousands of startups, Series A, B, C companies that will go to zero in the next several years. that we just haven't seen the bloodbath, or valuations will come way, way down, if not zero. It's inevitable. It will
Is that a
happen.
bad sign, a good sign? Is it an opportunity?
It's
Does it
healthy.
run
It's
away?
a flushing out of things. You know, you had companies that perhaps were at too high a valuation, or they will get acquired, or they'll be acqui-hired, and we're seeing some of that flush through.
Yeah.
That's a healthy thing to have happen for the ecosystem. It will be painful for funds, it will be painful for investors, and obviously for founders and companies, but the amazing thing about the startup ecosystem is that you can start again. I think there's a lot of credit being given to founders who realize they don't have a sustainable company at hand and are shutting things down and starting over. But it will. I think it's going to take some time. I don't think we've seen it. At the same time, you've got the flip side of new investments that have been made in a much more healthy valuation cycle and a new super cycle behind that.
Prince Khaled, under KPW, we're talking about 100 investments, more or less. You don't have the, let's say, the pressure of going out and raising funds because it's a closed family investment.
Sure.
So the question to you is, where do you look at? Are you looking at tech in details? And even in tech, I mean, we just talked about valuation and how things we might see in the next 7 years go into zero.
Yeah.
So are you taking that into perspective? What are your thoughts?
Our thoughts are really, we're either going to double down on current investments that we already did, or we're going to look for new opportunities that have AI, for example, enhance their ability to grow. So if you're just using the fancy term AI just for the hell of it, then that's definitely not something we're looking at. However, if there's an actual functionality that can add a lot of value to your business, this is definitely something we're looking at. SaaS is really interesting. Enterprise super interesting for us. We stepped away from food tech a few years ago. Right now we're diversifying our portfolio, and we're about it holds about 30% of our portfolio right now. Biotech in general, about 30%. But right now we're really focused on growing the portfolio as much as we can. As a matter of fact, I'm glad that you mentioned it, because as of 2025, we're not going to be a balance sheet company anymore. So we're going to launch our own fund.
Oh,
Yeah, KPW
you'll go out
Venture
raising.
Fund. Yes, so we're going to be called KPW Ventures Fund 2.
Why did you take this decision?
We want to grow it a little more.
Okay.
You know, we want to. It'll most likely be between 150 million dollar fund, and we just want to really showcase what the Middle East has to offer. But also, we want to tie in the Middle East and North America. That's where most of our investments are.
Hussain, the question that keeps repeating really is when we ask anyone, an investor, based in Middle East, for example, where are you investing?
Yeah.
The deployment is small, not big. So the question here to you, what do you see attractive in the Middle East, opening your offices here this period of time, and not still focusing on Southeast Asia with the fast growth that area and that region is witnessing?
That's tough competition, that's for sure.
No, it's for Hussain actually.
No,
أي بدك تجاوب؟
sorry يا منى مش.
إيه،
لا
أوكي.
تفضل.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
تفضل.
Allah have you. Look, I think each and every market has its own pros and cons. I think what you see here is a bit unique. So you have countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar, Oman, and the rest, even the rest of the GCC, have their own programs for their startups, right? And taking advantage of that is very important. So what's happening today, country by country, they are supporting the companies or the local startups. I think everyone realized that each economy complements the other. The scalability is very important. A lot of people talk about competition, but I don't think this applies in the VC. Maybe in one or two examples there will be some competitions, but the reality is fund managers work with each other, and markets needs to also open to other GCC. It's opening to each other, but markets complement each other rather than competing. That's message number one. And message number two is there are different programs in different countries that might be suit also other founders, and we have seen it in one of our companies that we're deploying at the moment, that a different country subscribed to it through one of their investment vehicle, that got eligible as of like they are a local startup. So that's one of the strongest messages here, that it's very important. And the third one is this region have a friendly tax environment, and that's one of the advantages.
Badr, do you think we can actually say that the VC market has normalized?
Not yet, no. I think two things. I can maybe talk about the regional market and maybe the global market. We'll start with regional. I think regional, I'm very excited to see a lot of VC-backed companies in the region actually now start looking at the IPO as a potential exit. I think just looking at our portfolio, looking at the ecosystem in Saudi, I would not be surprised to see anywhere between 5 to 10 companies IPOing over the next 3 to 4 years on Talal. And I think that would be a great milestone for this ecosystem in its development and matureness. On the other side, I think going to what Megan said, we have not yet flushed out the system of what happened in 2020 and 2021. Maybe that's because I think there is a more abundance of capital and availability of capital in the region compared to other emerging markets, which kind of delayed that, but it's inevitable. That's going to happen. Good companies are going to get funded. Bad companies or unsustainable business models will go to zero. It just takes time. I think those two things have to happen for this market to normalize. Going to the global side, I think one of the issues we are seeing as both LPs and direct investors is that the cash cycle in the market is plugged. And the big plug is actually in the IPO, US IPO market. The window has been closed for now almost 2 years. And there's a lot of capital that is stuck in very successful companies that are just waiting to IPO. You need that cash to come out. You need those distributions to come back to LPs for them to commit to new funds and fund those funds. I'm sure, Megan, you see that as a fund manager.
Yeah.
We see that as LPs. And I think once that cash cycle starts up again, we will start seeing normalization.
So you still see that IPOs would be the good exits, or
Say that again?
IPO as an exit? Is that
So I think the majority of businesses will exit through M&As, but the big IPOs, there are certain companies within, especially in the US, VC-backed companies that have reached 20, 30, 50, maybe also 100 billion valuation, merited valuation, which will be valued like that in the public market. And because of that, when an IPO happens, it releases a significant amount of cash and wealth back into the system. So that liquidity needs to come back for it to fund new businesses into that cycle.
Dr. Eric, on my first questions, you mentioned clearly what you look for and where you are investing in tech and all the future rounds and all that. But in addition to that, when a file is on your table, what do you look at? Do you look at ecosystem? Do you look at governance? Do you look at the name of the people you would partner with? How is that important to you? And are you going beyond Asia? Are you looking into the Middle East, for example? If that's the case, again, what are the questions you ask these people?
Yeah, so again, back to my earlier comments, I think for our business, for venture capital, because all the changes have been happening, we focus on 3 things. Early, vertical, and global. Okay? So early meaning that because of the change shifting away from these consumer platforms that take so much user acquisition capital to more technology-driven stuff, you have to be very early because it doesn't take that much capital. So what we want to do is to be involved in the 0 to 1 value creation. And that's where we believe you can add the most value. And then if you succeed, from 1 to 5, 1 to 10, that's when you reap the benefits. And vertical meaning that you have to focus on the right vertical sectors. It can't be just so no more generalists in our companies. only specialists. And the kind of specialists are, like I said, manufacturing technology, supply chain technology.
What would we call general?
Life sciences. Sorry?
What would we call general companies? What would we call a general company? What is the general,
General
company?
company.
What's a,
Well, a generalist would be a consumer-oriented
Okay,
company.
yeah.
To C, everybody's a C, so everybody's an expert. Okay? But if you look at a semiconductor company, if you're a life sciences company, you know, if you don't know the space, you can't even read the business plan. So vertical, very important. And global, like I said, because technology and supply chain is being deglobalized, it's getting fragmented. So we have to find opportunities in that fragmentation and reglobalization process, like moving companies to Saudi Arabia.
Okay. Megan, I probably ask you the same question. You raise funds and you invest. You're an investor and a fundraiser. So as an investor, what are the key details you look at when a paper is on your desk?
So, I mean, the first thing is product for us, right? You have to have a product. Somebody said it earlier, that it's not a nice to, it's a necessary product, where the market is big enough that you're addressing that you could create a massive outcome if we're investing our capital. So we're looking at very large market opportunities, data infrastructure, AI, consumer AI. We're looking for things and tools that could apply to every enterprise or every consumer. That's particular to Altimeter. We're a partner that comes in when a company is looking to scale into public markets, so Series B, C, D, and onwards. We also, you really have to look at the leader and the founder of the business, right? So you've got the product, right? A product that people love. Is this the founder that is going to recruit the killer talent in Silicon Valley and the world, right? Is this someone, and talent is global. And you have someone that's not just tremendous genius, not just because they've done it before, but that they can inspire both investors and talent to join them on this crazy journey of scaling a business. And if you look at the really successful founders in tech, one of their special skills has really been recruitment,
Right.
like the people they're surrounding themselves with. So that's one thing that I think is unique.
Badr, I want to hear your thoughts when it comes to government regulation, support, building a good system. How far are you now?
In Saudi,
Yes.
I think the efforts that have happened over the last, I don't know, maybe 5 years, maybe also the last couple of years, I mean, there's something new really coming out every few months. I think it's not about what regulations have come out, but I think how it's a collective effort of a multidisciplinary, different government organizations with the involvement of the ecosystem and the consultation of the ecosystem. I know I have very many friends in the ecosystem who are active in setting up policy, giving advice, providing feedback, and it's being taken in. And the policies are coming out very market friendly. I think we have a long way to go. This takes time, but the indications we're seeing right now and what has happened in scaling over the last few years, I think one thing for us, I was talking with a few of my colleagues about, is for example, we are on an accelerator with 500, called the Snabel 500 accelerator. I think we're on our batch 7 or 8 now, and the quality of the founders, the quality of the companies that we see in the last batch compared to the first batch is just in a different world, right? And just that's a testament of the ecosystem, because this comes out of that, and this is what we're very excited about.
All right. We have less than a minute, and I would like to hear your 5-year answer. Where do you see this market heading in 5 years? Megan?
Wow, I think that the future is here. I think the way that our lives operate today is going to look very different 5 years from now. And that's because of the technology that's being funded today. The way that we interact with the world, the way that we buy things, the way that we educate our kids, the healthcare. I mean, it's all changing. And that's going to create tremendous value creation for investors that are participating. It's exciting.
Dr. Eric?
I think the most successful investors are those who are investing first in class in everything.
Badr?
I think 5 years. I'm really excited to see how this AI kind of turns out, and specifically on the applications. All of what we're talking about right now is the foundation, how we're building it, how we're using data. But I think what people are interested in is to see how it's going to be applied into our daily lives. And I think it's going to be surprising to a lot of people.
Hussain?
I would say that this market currently being, it's developing rather than developed, as everyone knows. I think having a balanced mixture between local funds, international funds, to work hand in hand with regulators is very important. But the reality of things is even the funds and the investors are part of the ecosystem. You have a bigger part of the ecosystem, which is the angel investors. I think a lot of education is needed there. That's what we will see in the next 5 years, and I think the market will be, developing as we go.
Prince Khaled?
I think if you asked me this question 2022, I'd have a different answer. I think throughout the months that are past, we're growing exponentially. I don't believe that it's going to be the same world in 5 years, 10 years. I think it's going to be extremely different, and I think in a positive manner. I think AI is really going to accelerate a lot in the medical field. I think it's going to help with environmental issues. I think it's going to have a lot of humanitarian issues with that, solve a lot of humanitarian issues. So I think the future definitely looks bright, but it will be exponentially more than what anyone can predict, I think, now.
Prince Khaled, Hussain, Badr, Dr. Eric, Megan, thank you so much, and thank you for the full house. Thank you.